Hello there, wherever you are joining us. This is The Agenda. My name is Abiodun Famujuro. It is a great delight to welcome you to this platform once again across various media devices and interaction. In today's topic for The Agenda, we shall be looking at institutions of governance, institutions within the framework of government. And we will be looking at one critical institution. It is the judicial arm of government, the judiciary. Every government has three working platforms: executive, legislature, and the judiciary. In Nigeria, the judiciary is regarded as the last hope of the common man. I will not be speaking alone today. I will be engaging someone. But please note that we will be creating a platform for enlightenment, for education, and for recommendation. Joining me all the way from North America, a legal practitioner of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, Joshua Olorunda. Joshua, you are very much welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. We go right into it, so we're able to maximize time and engagement for everyone watching us. Let's discuss the workings of the Nigerian judiciary. Now, how important is the judiciary in Nigeria, specifically as a nation? What is the importance? How important is the judiciary? I want to hear your thoughts and your opinion.
Thank you very much for that. The judiciary in Nigeria has always played a very key role in balancing the governance and the administration of justice in Nigeria, even from the military era. If you are familiar with the military system of governments, you know it involves the suspension of big constitutional rights and legal rights. But even at then, the judiciary stood up to its role in those days. We have examples of cases where people approached the courts, and despite the fact that the military made their stand so clear, respect to judiciary, and with respect to administration of justice. As a matter of fact, we had some military rulers then in Nigeria who would have loved to assume the role of the judiciary, but thankfully, we had very brave judges in Nigeria who put their life in line, just to see that people justice. We have plethora of incidences and cases there. And even today, we would not be, except we want to deceive ourselves. We know that the judiciary is faced with a lot of intimidation from the other arms of governments. Unfortunately, as it sounds, we also understand that in many states in Nigeria, some of the things that have to do with the finance of the judiciary and other things that would help aid justice in Nigeria are in the hands of the executive and the legislature. But despite this, we've had people who got justice in Nigeria. We have cases of people who had their appointments wrongfully terminated at their places of work, who were reinstated. We have people who had to suffer some bodily injuries or the other from rape and others. And we saw that people who were culprits in all these things were brought to justice, even in this country.
All right, Joshua.
Even though we know that the country...
I need to come in here. When, for the agenda, for the purpose of the agenda that we're looking at in this particular series, we're looking at institutions. Now, a young person comes onto this broadcast and is saying, what about the judiciary? I am aware that we have the Supreme Court. I would like you to share with us, summarily, the workings of the Nigerian judiciary. Because some person will say, I'm not aware that there's a Sharia court. There is a Sharia court in Nigeria. So please share with us the inner workings, to the best of your knowledge, of the Nigerian judiciary. I'm talking about various stratas of various courts and the jurisdiction they carry.
Thank you very much. I would like to say, for anyone who would love to know much more about the judiciary and the administration of the public sector generally in Nigeria, the person has to develop interest. As much as we want to educate the younger generation, as much as we want to let them see the operations of judiciary, we also have to let them know that in senior clients in advanced countries of the world, every young person still has a little bit of interest in the administration of justice. But kicking off from that, I would just like to lay some foundational foundational lessons or teachings on judiciary. Basically, the judiciary in Nigeria has separate sectors, several stratas, but the very common one to start with is the Supreme Court, because everybody knows about the Supreme Court. Everybody knows the Supreme Court has like the final court in the land. But to start with, basic justice can be gotten from many other sectors of the judiciary, many other levels of the judiciary. For example, we know and we understand that if it has to do with anything business or maybe industry or contract, or young people want to engage in businesses and all that. Young people want to know their rights in their places of work and their rights even in the tech world. We want to let them know, the young people know that the High Court, for example, is a very open place to access justice, and justice is not so far, is not so farther that like the way people see it. Some young people think that justice is so far and not something that is reachable. No, the court is an open place where justice can be accessed, and to make it more interesting, we also have some courts where you don't even need to necessarily, go through a lawyer, to get justice. We call them the lower courts of justice. The customary courts, for example, the Sharia courts in the north. There are places where you can just appear and make your open submission to the court. It's only when it gets to some very capital or maybe very serious offenses or serious cases where you may need to go to the High Court. So I just want the young people to know that the court system in Nigeria is nearer than they think.
All right, Joshua. You mentioned the High Court. There is a federal High Court. There is the High Court of the states. There's the federal High Court. There is the magistrate court, right? There's a court of appeal that we have them in various jurisdictions across the workings of the nation called Nigeria. Can young people trust the judicial system for free and fair judgment? Can we encourage people within the nation of Nigeria and tell them, approach the court when you are seeking redress? Approach the court when certain things happen and you're not comfortable with them. Can we encourage them to do that? Can they trust the judicial system? Yes.
Thank you very much. I think it would be too hard on the judiciary if we entertain every time the general statement that the judiciary has compromised, because it appears that many sectors still need improvement in the country. That is, if I want to sound modest, And so to say the judiciary is like the most degenerated sector of the government would mean that we are not so fair to the judiciary. The judiciary has given judgments, has handed over judgments to people who do not have so-called the big names in Nigeria. We have plethora of cases. Just recently, a lady got justice, a lady who was seeking for a job got justice. And ordinarily, the average Nigerian thinks that the case will have been swept under the courts. She got justice. The man who raped and killed her is going to die by hanging, And we have several cases of people who, had to face injustice or the other, young people who do not know anyone. Of course, am I saying there are no lapses? There are lapses. Of course, am I saying that there are no room for improvement? There are. But as it operates in the judiciary, we have it, so to say, in every sector in Nigeria. So, and if we want to be fair, you want to agree with me that judiciary has shown itself by obtaining judgments of people who got to the seats of power in the wrong way, handing over justice for people who got wrongfully terminated from their place of work, and many other scenarios. So I want to tell the young people that what they need now is for them to be conscious and for them to know that justice is not handed over to people except to stand up for your right, except you know that you know what you are going for and you go for it.
All right.
Except we also fine-tune our own beliefs and as our own beliefs and ideas to the right channel.
Joshua, I want to ask you a question. And many people are saying that you spoke about justice in an incident that just took place. The judiciary stood for the person, the deceased person, and everybody's excited about it. Or a number of persons are excited about it. Does the judiciary wield complete political independence and autonomy? Does the judiciary in Nigeria wield complete political independence and autonomy? Now, let me give you context. The judiciary in Nigeria has gone on strike a couple of times. Okay? Now, before you answer this question, I've given you the question. I need you to think about it. We're going on a short commercial break right now. When we come back, Joshua Olorunda will be answering the question, does the judiciary wield complete political independence and autonomy? This is still the agenda. I am Abiodun Famojiro. See you soon. Welcome back. This is still the agenda. We're looking at the subject of institutions, examining the judicial arm of government, the judiciary, to be very accurate. Still with me is Joshua Olorunda. Joshua, before we went on a short commercial break, I asked you the question about whether the judiciary, the judicial arm of government, wields complete political independence and autonomy. And I did reference to you that the judiciary across various states in Nigeria consistently have gone on strike. We believe that sometimes they are political gladiators. People look at politicians and they conclude that when it comes to the politicians, there are two sets of laws. There are two sets of justices. Please answer the question. Does the judiciary wield complete political independence and autonomy?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The way the judiciary is structured in Nigeria, the appointments of judges in Nigeria is contingent on the executive and judiciary and the legislative, I mean. What do I mean? The National Judicial Council recommends a judge to the president of the country, especially in the superior courts. And when the president appoints the judge, the confirmation is subject to the Senate. Now, this is where the problem comes in, actually. One would expect that such processes should be done with all fairness and without any partiality or reasons for trying to choose a candidate you believe would favor your own ideas or orientation. But unfortunately, we've had cases where we see that some members of the legislative and judicial executive have disagreed on the appointments of judges because they feel some of them may be so tough on them and would uphold justice without any fear of favoritism. So coming from that angle, I would say that the judiciary does not have full autonomy. As much as I know that normally the judiciary would not just appoint someone without some checks and balances, as we have in all sectors of government across the world. But the fear of this is that some persons who do not have good intentions for the country, some persons who have sinister motives for having people that are theirs to be in the judiciary, have tried to manipulate the process. So in a way, I would say that we desire more autonomy for the judiciary. I may not be able to give the way the autonomy should go exactly now, because I understand that we still have the process of checks and balances in the country. But the unfortunate thing is just that we have some individuals who, for their own sakes, for their own personal aggrandizements, would want to see persons that they feel that would dance to their own whims and caprices. But generally, I would say that the judiciary has its own extent of autonomy in the country. But yes, we can say that we can get a better one that has more independence than what we have now.
Thank you, Joshua. I need to ask you this question. Autonomy to what extent? If the judicial members or the judicial society, the unions, they go on strike, the complaint has been consistent. It has been with regards to financial autonomy. It is believed that of the three arms of government in Nigeria, the judicial arm gets the least in terms of financial remuneration. So will you agree with me that the judiciary needs to get financial autonomy and be properly remunerated? The judges do a lot of work. The staff, they do a lot of work, but it doesn't appear that they are getting enough financial remuneration. So do you agree that the judiciary needs to have financial autonomy so that they do not have to go cap in hand? They are an arm of government. Why should they go cap in hand? Because the young people looking and watching, sometimes they wonder, a court is on strike. When the courts are on strike, or the judicial staff, not the court, are on strike, justice is delayed. Yes, Joshua.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, the executive arm and the legislative arm of government appear to be the only ones that have the full autonomy. Even the legislative has its own limitations in that when it has to do with the various states in the country, we see that more or less the executive controls not just some sectors of the judiciary, but also a very large part of the legislative. So I would agree that, and I'm of the position and also a proponent of financial autonomy for the judiciary. The question seems to be that some people try to ask if judiciary actually is a major is a major sector for revenue generation in Nigeria. But I still tell everyone that the judiciary has a very key role in the financial sector of the country. The judiciary hands down financial, or let me say monetary sanctions to people who breach a part of the law, the constitution, or maybe any legislative any legislative law that has been passed. The judiciary, for example, has recovered some emoluments meant for the public that have been embezzled by the constitution. So I see no reason why this sector that doesn't even have many personnel like some parts like the executive or the legislature should not be autonomous. So of course I'm of the position. I am a proponent of financial autonomy for the judiciary. I believe if we have this, we're going to get better judgments and justice in the country.
Thank you very much, Joshua. I take you to the next question, a very important question. In the life of every nation, there are elections. There are democratic institutions. And I'm talking about nations that have embraced democratic principles, not those who are still under military dictatorship. If there are elections and there are electoral disputes, they will go to court for the judges to determine what will happen. Listen carefully. Can the judiciary safeguard the rule of law, particularly during elections, without the full backing of the executive arm? Can the judiciary safeguard the rule of law, particularly during elections? Because there are winners and there are losers. And this is a very critical factor. Now, Joshua, I need you to do me this favor. We're about to go on a short commercial break. I have asked a very critical question that I need you to answer. Because once the judicial team, the judiciary hands over judgment, if the executive does not enforce, then what is going to happen? Wherever you are joining us, and if you have just joined us, this is the agenda. We're talking about institutions, and the judiciary is under the microscope for the purpose of education, for the purpose of enlightenment, for the purpose of empowerment. I am still Abiodun Famujiro. See you soon. It's good to have you back. This is the agenda. Wherever you are, welcome once again. Joshua, before we went on a short commercial break, we asked a very critical question. Elections, electoral disputes, safeguarding the rule of law, the backing of the executive for the purposes of enforcement and application. Please talk to us.
I think at this point, we have to choose our words carefully and deliberately. Because sometimes when we use the word backing, it appears to be that the executive is maybe above the judiciary, which in normal society should not be so. They are all three arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, and they are meant to carry their own respective duties out. And I think one of the major problems this is not my personal opinion, this is what everyone and most people say, is that we have a country where, this is not me trying to talk down the country, but we have a country where it appears to be some individuals are more powerful than institutions. Because the role of the executive is just to execute whatever the other arms of government have put into law or have carried out, For example, if the legislature brings out a law, for example, it may be an act of parliament, the legislature is not going to be the one that will enforce it, because the police and the other arms of government are meant for that, are not under the legislature. And that doesn't make the legislature subservient to the executive. And the same thing operates with the judiciary, if you ask me. The judiciary, the role is to make sure that the system is balanced, the rule of law is upheld. In election, as the scenario we just painted out now, that the rightful person who are appointed after scrutiny in an open court system, that the rightful persons are installed as the governor or whatever position the person is holding. The role of the executive is just to make sure that this is carried out. This is just a role. It's just a role prescribed under the Constitution. Section 4 of the 1999 Constitution, enumerates and explains the roles of the executive. Section 5 goes ahead to explain the rules of the, or Section 4 rather, explains legislative roles. Section 5, the executive, and 6 talks about the judiciary. So everybody has his own role. So this is not the arm of government trying to back or give some support to the other arm of government. This is where the problem comes in. So an arm of government thinks it has superior powers than the other. No, this is just the arm of government trying out to carry out its own
responsibility.
So if we use the word backing, it appears to be that we are trying to make the executive above the judiciary, which is not so. I would just say that we should encourage a system of government where all the arms of government carry out their own respective roles as enunciated in the Constitution. So I would not say the word backing. I would just say that, yes, the executive has its own role in upholding and making sure that election processes in Nigeria go smoothly.
Thank you very much, Joshua. We're getting ready to round off in this session regarding institutions with the judiciary. In 1 minute, Joshua, access to justice. Can it be improved upon? What is your recommendation? In 1 minute. Some persons cannot afford the service of a lawyer, so they look for quacks or they want to represent themselves. Access to justice. In 1 minute, what is your recommendation for those who are watching?
Thank you. Access to justice, it appears justice is quite expensive, not just in this part of the world, but in many parts of the world. But then if one is so careful enough, we have organizations, NGOs who, stand up for rights of people and see that people get justice. It's just a matter of aligning your mind and making your own findings and, having a positive mind to getting justice or getting yourself involved in the administration of the country. Once you have that, we have sectors around, we have organizations around who are ready to stand up for the rights of people. And more interesting, even lawyers that give out bills and they won't go to court for free. It is a practice among lawyers. It is even recommended in our own rules of practice that lawyers should offer free services. We call it pro bono. So if young people are ready to get justice, they can always talk to a lawyer, and I'm sure we have lawyers who are humane in this country, and they would also be ready to give out cases free of charge. So yes, young people can access justice, not as expensive as they think. Justice is at their side, justice is at their hand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joshua Olorunda. It has been a great delight having you on this session of The Agenda, where we are discussing institutions with the judiciary under review. Wherever you are joining us, please take note. The Agenda, we are having a significant amount of series. It is not just regards to institutions, but civic responsibility, you and I waking up to your consciousness, the empowerment of young people. The Agenda is here to transform, to change, to enlighten the agenda of the society called Nigeria. I look forward to seeing you on our next broadcast. My name once again is Abiodun Famujura. Connect with us on all our various social media platforms displayed upon the screen. It promises to be very engaging and insightful. Your feedback is appreciated whenever you are able to give it, objectively, passionately, and committed. I pledge to Nigeria, my country. God bless you. Till I come your way next time, have a fantastic time and see you soon. Bye for now.